All right, that wraps up the much-anticipated briefing by former uMkhonto weSizwe Party Secretary-General Floyd Shivambu. There, Shivambu announcing the start of a consultative process to ask South Africans whether another political party is needed and what exactly should distinguish it from other parties. He's saying that, however, he's not resigning from uMkhonto weSizwe. One wonders what the party's constitution says about possibility of dual membership should a party be formed, or even the current dynamics, what the Constitution actually says around actively participating in a process that could possibly lead to the formation of another party. The time is exactly 23 minutes past 1. You're watching On Point. I'm Fundo Mabalani. And of course, I'm not alone if it's 1 o'clock. I'm joined by my colleague, Juliet Newell. Good afternoon, Juliet.
Good afternoon. Well, we're going to have to chat now to our reporters. We have Nzwandile Mbeje, SABC political editor, standing by. And we'll also be chatting to Ralph Mathekga, SABC senior politics reporter, and then maybe political analyst, Ralph Mathekga. But what did you think about that? Was that what you were expecting from Shivambu?
No, most certainly. Having looked at just the media space, it was littered with articles around a possibility of the formation of a political party. But most certainly, I think many, having already read those articles, assumed that is the decisive move. There was going to be a political party that is announced today, but it seems they've decided to go the route of a consultative process first to see if South Africans actually desire another political party now with a number of political parties we already have. So most certainly an interesting way to start this road to a political party, but something that is not new. We've seen with Action SA, a number of them go this route, Juliet.
Even the former president.
Yes, to start with consulting and finding out if this is exactly what the people of South Africa need. But of course, as Juliet, you've stated, we're not alone. We are joined by political analyst Ralph Mathekga, just to help us make sense of exactly what we've just heard. Good afternoon, Ralph. Thank you very much for joining us. Very interesting developments in South Africa's body politic. We've just heard there the announcement of a consultative process to find out from citizens whether they need another political party and what exactly should distinguish that political party. Your take?
I believe we've actually lost contact with him for the moment.
No, unfortunately, we have lost contact to Ralph Mathekga, but most certainly, Juliet, I must say, quite interesting what we've heard today. The other interesting dynamic being that he's not resigning from the uMkhonto weSizwe Party.
Correct.
So one wonders what exactly the Constitution would say. There is no political party right now, but what he has committed to is to actively participate in asking South Africans if they need another political party. One wonders what the MK party would think of that. Is that not decampaigning them, compromising their position?
But isn't that exactly what the former president did?
Exactly. So it seems he's taken a page from the president's book because he insists he remains an ANC member. So most certainly, quite a lot that Floyd Shivambu, as he stated himself, that he has learned from former President Jacob Zuma. So among others, is to use this type of modus operandi to say, I remain a disciplined member of uMkhonto weSizwe, especially because we saw him come in wearing or donning the regalia of uMkhonto weSizwe
and
Party.
Then took it off.
Exactly. So quite interesting times in the political space. I believe we have Ralph Mathekga back on the line. Good afternoon, Ralph. Let's hope second time around is lucky for us. Your take on just these developments of the start from today of a consultative process that would ask South Africans whether they are in need of another political party.
Good afternoon to your viewers. I do think it's quite a significant development. And to start with, Mr. Shivambu's press conference effectively means he resigned from the MK party, even if there has not been any formal expulsion. He's not announcing his resignation, but the fact that he will undertake a process through which to consult on the formation of a new party effectively means he will no longer be concerning himself with the affairs of the MK party. So do South Africans need a new political party? Certainly there will be smaller parties on South Africa's political landscape going forward. What this means is that we are going to have multiple small parties. The age of bigger parties is upon us. So I think that certainly with the parties that exist, it is worth a try. And I think that even if he does not want to pursue a party that will focus on the region, he wants to focus on a party that will represent people nationally. I think there is a space for that. There is still a space for even more regional political parties. And region does not mean ethnic.
And then just on mistrust that we're seeing in the political space. We've seen now, at least he's revealed, that the reasons for his decision to leave uMkhonto weSizwe party or start this consultative process, pardon me, is that there was a presentation of an intelligence report to the former president, Jacob Zuma, which revealed that he was working to topple the president, but also was crisscrossing the continent, looking to gain some sort of superpowers to make people disappear. Your take on just this kind of culture of mistrust in many political parties and the use of intelligence reports?
I think it speaks to a lack of proper institutionalization within these smaller parties or within these newer parties, I beg your pardon. And I think that if you look at what he's talking about, it's lack of proper structures to deal with conflict. If you look particularly at the MK party, it is a party that is relatively new, and it is a party whose institutional infrastructure is still in its formative years. So to see the use of intelligence report to deal with internal squabbles, internal conflict within the party, that speaks to a poor institutionalization within the party. And I think he was quite open about that he believes that there need to be proper institutions within political parties so that these parties can be coherent internally.
Ralph, I'm going to jump in here. It's Juliet. How credible is Floyd Shivambu as a new party leader, considering his party hopping over the past few years, obviously from the ANC to the EFF to the MK party, and how difficult could it be for him to build a support base?
The support base, I think it is possible. And I do think that, South Africans are becoming more and more jaded about political parties, but that does not mean that the space for formation of a new party that will inspire people is no longer there. I do believe that such a space exists. The problem that we have is that quite a number of existing parties have not been able to inspire that confidence significantly. So I think it is worth trying, and the lessons that leaders bring with from their previous experience with other political parties should actually tell them where to go, what to do when it comes to inspiring that confidence, how to run a political party. We have heard in this press conference how some other political parties are built around cult, and I think these are the things that a new formation, if it were to come into effect, need to avoid. And I think when I'm listening to this press conference, it also speaks to the political culture within South Africa and how leaders interact with supporters of different political parties. Much work still needs to be done in this regard.
No, most certainly a very interesting take there, Ralph, but we'd like to keep you on for us. We're just roping in politics editor Mzwandile Mbeje, as well as politics senior reporter Samkele Maseko, who have been monitoring the proceedings from Midrand at that very briefing. Good afternoon to the both of you. Perhaps to start with you, Mzwandile, quite a lot that we've heard. Many had anticipated the announcement of a political party. I believe it's Samkele that we have now. Samkele, good afternoon. We expected the announcement, or at least some expected the announcement of a political party, but what we've heard today is a process, a consultative process now to find out from South Africans if they need another political party.
Yes, indeed, Floyd Shivambu is saying that he will be embarking on a process to consult South Africans on a need for a new, if there is a need for a new political party across the country. He will be engaging those prominent South Africans, the likes of Dr. Ivan Khoza, Yokeza Mtaungs, your Mr. Mike Nkuna, who is a prominent businessman within the country, your Dr. Patrice Motsepes as well, who is also a prominent and eminent South African when it comes to politics, when it comes to business and philanthropy, particularly within the country. He will be engaging with his team, religious and traditional leaders, on a need, if there is, of this new political vehicle. A similar process that the Economic Freedom Fighters, when they were launched in Uncle Tom's Hall, they embarked upon, which Floyd Shivambu was part of today, labels that particular political formation of the Economic Freedom Fighters as a cult led by Julius Silo Malema, also saying that some political parties are fiefdoms led by families in reference to the MK party, and also alleging that some leaders of the MK party, when they are high on drugs at night, start tweeting about him. A very bizarre punchy statements that were made there by Floyd Shivambu, ultimately announcing that he is embarking on that process to forming a party. And mind you, just like Jacob Zuma, he will hold a dual membership of this new political vehicle and that of the MK party. But I am not alone. I am with uMkhonto Mbeje, political editor at the SABC. Mr. Mbeje, just the essence of that briefing, what did you take out of it?
Well, I got a sense of someone who's extremely frustrated at what is currently happening within the party that he still belongs to, the MK. That's why Samgele, he was able to just say the former president is surrounded by scoundrels who are effectively misleading him. But the fact of the matter from this briefing is that he is frustrated about what is happening in the MK, but is trying to obviously be very diplomatic about it. So as a result, because I mean he's human, he's got ambitions. That is why he's embarking on this process, which is going to be very interesting. How the MK, for example, is going to respond. And I think he was very careful in his articulation of not necessarily criticizing MK, particularly its leader. Actually, going as far as to say what he has learned from President Zuma in 6 months is more than what he learned at the EFF in 10 years. So clearly, you can see he's trying to strike the balance, as you correctly said. He is still going to continue to be a member of MK. And then those intelligence reports, I think, which he says were used to remove him. And I think that's part of what really frustrated him. And then, depending on what MK Samgele does from now on, if, for example, the leadership of MK feels he is expelled, he may play a victim, and South African will say, well, he didn't want to leave, so you pushed him out. Whatever he does is justified.
When you look at some of the platitudes he had, particularly for former President Zuma, saying that he learned more from him in the 8 months he was there at MK party as opposed to the 10 years he was at the Economic Freedom Fighters. But from the conversations I've had with EFF leaders, there was never a time where Floyd Shivambu actually confronted Julius Malema on some of the perceived wrong things Julius Malema was doing within the Economic Freedom Fighters. So where does he now take it from to speak about people not having the guts to confront Cyril Ramaphosa on the wrong things he does? Yet we are told by our own sources in the NEC that your people like Dr. Zwelini Mkhize, like your Andile Lungisas, who do stand up within that National Executive Committee and confront their president, including Akwede Mantashe, for example. So where does this talk of him saying that people are afraid to confront leaders when he failed to do so within the EFF?
Well, it's quite interesting because, in fact, I think as we were listening, we're just also remarking with some of the journalists there to say, if you look at this press briefing, the people who got it very hard from this briefing would probably be Duduzile without even him naming her, and someone like Julius Malema. So basically, you get a sense that he either bottled whatever was troubling him or may not have been brave enough to stand up and speak about these things. But the fact of the matter, you can see that he is done with that relationship. It's quite interesting.
When you look at South African politics is all about crowd pullers. A charismatic leader like Jacob Zuma was able to grow the ANC base in KwaZulu-Natal by about 2 million votes, where he took over from Mbeki, where the ANC was sitting at about 1.4 million, taking ANC above 2-3 million in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. It is a numbers game. Julius Malema is a crowd puller. He's charismatic. You look at the likes of Fikile Razmataz Mbalula, very charismatic as well. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, very charismatic. Floyd Shivambu, not so charismatic. Where will those numbers come for him?
It will depend, Samgele, on the team that is putting together. I mean, he can be the engine of the party and perhaps not so much be the face. If, let's say, part of the leadership that is going to announce, I think in the coming weeks, you have people who are able to appeal in terms of the crowds, so that can work. But as you've said, South African politics is also about optics. So if you are not perhaps loud enough or if you are not charismatic, they tend to ignore you. But also the fact that he is not dissociating himself from the current party that he is in, and you would have seen that he seems to have had some sort of groundswell of support since he was removed as the Secretary General. Perhaps he's also working on that. Who he brings to then deal with that aspect will be very important. So that structure that will be announced, Sam, we will be able to see where they're going with this.
Thank you very much, Mzwandile Mbeje. That is the politics editor at the South African Broadcasting Corporation, Mzwandile Mbeje, just laying the lay of the land politically of what the road lays ahead when the political tectonic plates are shifting beneath the feet of Floyd Shivambu, particularly when it comes to the uMkhonto weSizwe party. You do know that he has been very scathing against some of those people he perceives as scoundrels who surround the MK party leader Jacob Zuma.
Well, thanks very much. Those were our reporters, Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC political editor, as well as
Mathekga, yes.
Mathekga, SABC senior politics reporter. But before we go, Ralph, if I could ask you one more question. The MK party distanced itself from this presser today, with them saying that they had nothing to do with it. But now, what does this suggest about former President Jacob Zuma's control over the party, as well as its future direction?
I mean, from what we hear from Mr. Shivambu, clearly, Mr. Zuma, from what we hear from Mr. Shivambu's presser, Mr. Zuma is being pulled in all directions. Former President Jacob Zuma is being pulled in all directions. I mean, Mr. Shivambu is not holding back. He's referring to the people around Mr. Zuma as scoundrels. And really, the idea that he could continue to hold membership of the MK, talking about the people, referring to them as scoundrels, it means he has got no hope of working with those people again. And President Jacob Zuma, I mean, even if he tries by all means, Mr. Shivambu, to try to balance and show how he's endeared to President Jacob Zuma, it just comes out that he's actually effectively saying in this press conference that Mr. Zuma does not have direction. He's not in control of the party. Mm-hmm. And one way or another, that actually talks a lot to internal wrangles within the MK party. He says that, that is Mr. Shivambu, he says that he does not want to speak ill about the MK party, but listening to him very carefully, he's painting it as a party that is being flooded by tribalists, if you like, by people who understand it as a regional party, and Mr. Zuma is in a position where he's almost a victim, someone who cannot do nothing about that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Mathekga, just in closing, one final question. Specifically on this aspect of uMkhonto weSizwe party, we're hearing many using the term of politics of proximity within the uMkhonto weSizwe party, that here it seems those who are within close proximity of the former president are the ones who at least will occupy the most influential positions at the time. Given that this seems to be the phenomena that's playing out, will uMkhonto weSizwe perhaps outlive the current central figure if anything were to happen?
That is going to be very difficult. I mean, when one tries to imagine the picture, how MK party will look like beyond Mr. Zuma's leadership, former President Jacob Zuma's leadership, is quite a difficult picture to actually paint. I mean, if members of MK party can build stronger institutions that do not rely on an individual, that do not rely on that proximity to leadership, and relies a lot on proper structures within the party, consistent structures that can function quite consistently in terms of discipline, in terms of even occupation of those positions. I mean, Mr. Shivambu himself, he was catapulted to higher leadership within the MK party. And what process has it been followed to do that? Is it an indication of a party that functions through internal, clear, coherent structures? The answer is no. I mean, he came from nowhere as far as MK party is concerned. He came from the EFF and occupied a higher position within the MK party. If there were proper structures within the MK party, he wouldn't be where he was as an SG of the party.
So he also benefited from these politics of proximity. Mr. Mathekga, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. That's political analyst Ralph Mathekga there speaking to us.